Shall we start?
Yeah.
Hey folks, good afternoon and a very warm welcome. My name is Sarthak and I'm an application developer with ThoughtWorks. It's been a little over 4 years that I've been with ThoughtWorks. And I've been primarily working in JVM ecosystem, Java and Kotlin. And I'm a very big fan of Kotlin. Before I hand over this introduction bowl to Ranjit, I'll just tell you what we're going to do in this session. So I have Ranjit and Ela with me. As a part of this session, Ranjit and I will be pairing. We'll try and migrate a Java code base to Kotlin. The idea is not to migrate the entire code base. We'll start in small steps. We'll try and cover most of the features that we want to demonstrate, covering a sizable chunk of migration. Once we're done, we'll have a Q&A with Ela. She's from Urban Company. That's one of the companies which has done complete migration from Java to Kotlin. So we'll have some questions with Ela to understand her experience. And finally, when we say it is the time to goodbye, we will have some questions of you answered. With that said, I'll hand it over to Ranjit.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarthak. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ranjit Shinde. I work as an application developer in ThoughtWorks. It's been around 8 years that I have been developing software. I have mostly worked on JVM languages like Java and Kotlin. Over to you, Ela.
Thanks, Ranjit. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Ela Agarwal. I work as a manager in engineering team of Urban Company. In the past, I have worked both on iOS and Android. I have built games, B2C apps, enterprise apps, etc. My journey with Kotlin started around 4 years ago when we started migrating all Urban Company's client from Java to Kotlin. And yeah, right now we are at 100% in Kotlin. Yeah. Okay, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ela.
Thank you, Ranjit. Thank you, Ela. So, Ranjit, now we start our pairing. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, before starting with the pairing session, can you explain why we should use Kotlin?
Sure. So, Ranjit, there are a lot of reasons. I'll state a few. See, Kotlin essentially as a language has got features which have been very appealing to me. For example, this language is pragmatic, which essentially means Kotlin is tried internally before any feature is rolled out. It is concise, which essentially means it just takes away a lot of boilerplate code. Your code is still expressive. It expresses the intent very naturally. It is safe. It makes an attempt to handle nulls at compile time. We'll explain later why it makes an attempt. And last, it is 100% interoperable with Java, right? When you're moving to Kotlin, doesn't mean your existing libraries, if any, your existing Java ecosystem will have to be dropped. No, that's not going to happen. So essentially, a lot of these features which make it a very, very compelling language in general.
Okay, so if we are working on a Java application, which is running in a production, right? And we want to start with the migration. In your opinion, what is the best starting point?
Sure. So essentially, Ranjit, there are two answers to this. If you're in a microservice-based application, right, you can pick one microservice and start the migration. And like we said, your existing libraries, if any, would work seamlessly with Kotlin. Now, that's really a safe way to start. But if you're in a monolithic application, it becomes a little tricky because it becomes difficult to figure out what's your starting point. But that's something which we'll try and answer as a part of this session, wherein we try and migrate a monolithic application to from Java to Kotlin, really.
Yep.
So, do you want to give me do you want to walk us through the application that you have built in Java?
Yeah, sure, Sarthak. Can you share the screen?
Sure, I'll share my screen. Let me know once it is visible.
Yep.
Here you go.
Yeah, it's loading. Yeah, I can see the
Sure.
screen. Okay, so this is a simple Java application which basically simulates the purchase of a product at places like Big Bazaar or a Star Bazaar. The application has three domains in the Java folder. If you just answer, yeah, the application has three domains: basket, catalog, and invoice. Catalog represents the products available in the market by their barcode. Yeah, if you go inside the product, yeah, it's loading. Yeah, product has a properties like product ID, barcode, price, and a description. As a part of the catalog, we also have this barcode scanner, which will scan the catalog for a product if you pass it to a barcode. And then basket represents in the basket domain. Yeah, basket represents the selected items or selected products for a purchase. You can add a new product into the basket. The basket has a behavior like it will return the total number of items in a basket as well as the total price of the basket. Yeah, that's it. And finally, at the checkout counter, we generate the invoice for this basket. Invoice also have information like the total items and the total price of the basket or the invoice. We also have a functional unit test for this. Yes, this simulates kind of an end-to-end functionality. Here we are creating a catalog with which has two products. Then we are creating or we are using the barcode scanner. First, we create the empty basket. Then we use barcode scanner to scan and add that particular product into the basket. And then we are generating the invoice for the basket. As a part of the session, we expect this invoice to have a two items and the total price should be 300. That's the overall scope of this application, Sarthak.
Sure, Ranjit. So essentially what I get is three domains in a way: catalog, basket, and invoice. Fair. I'm good. So where would you suggest we start from with the migration?
I think catalog happens to be a core domain of this application. So we can start from the catalog. And while migrating, we can also use it into the other modules or other domains as well.
Sure. So if I look at catalog, Ranjit, it happens to be a simple mapping between a product by barcode. Great. Product
Yep.
contains your product ID, barcode, price, and description. Product ID, okay. Now here, where do we start from?
Let's start from the price. I like price class. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So essentially, price contains your double value, and price is equal when its values are equal. Fair. So essentially, Ranjit, just correct me if that's not right. Price is nothing but a value object, right?
That's correct, Sarthak, which means its equality is determined by its properties and it does not have its own identity.
Fair. So you're right. Equality determined by its attributes. Fair, Ranjit. We can start migrating into Kotlin. I will have Kotlin as a directory. I'll keep the package name different to begin with a migration so as to avoid conflicts.
Okay.
So this is your what? Catalog, right?
Yes.
That's it. We are good. Ranjit, Kotlin has got this data class which is used to represent objects, wherein your equality is based by your attributes, which is nothing but your value objects, which essentially means all I can say is, hey, I have a data class price with, let's say, private value as double. That's it.
Okay, so it looks like kind of an Lombok library's data class, but it's a part of the Kotlin standard library, right?
So Ranjit, there are a few differences. Yes, Lombok provides an annotation to represent your data class or value classes. And you rightly mentioned it's a first class concept in Kotlin. So that essentially means the moment you have data class, you get equals hash code toString out of the box. But what you also get is a copy method and a destructuring concept. So copy would actually allow you to change the values and return a new instance. And destructuring, which means take price, break it into its constituents.
Okay, so with copy, I can create a new instance of price, right? And it's a new
That's right.
instance. Yeah,
That's correct.
I think that's very helpful for in case of the value objects where we want to create a new instance and also has some behavior on top of it. Yeah, I think that's
Correct.
very helpful.
So I'll start with your zero thingy.
Okay. So Sarthak, you are using this companion object syntax for creating the zero price static object, right?
That's right.
Is this companion object and replacement to Java's static keyword?
Yes, see, essentially Kotlin does not have static. So all you get is a companion object which accompanies your class. So internally, when you look at the bytecode or the compiled class, what you will have is this object turning into a static final class within price. I'll also have an annotation, JVM static. I'll tell you the reason for this a little later. And you have another behavior add. I'll do that. That's it, Ranjit. Our price classes ready. You had a behavior add. You have zero, which I think should be used a little later, and we are good.
Yeah. Can we write the unit test for this add method?
Sure, I'll quickly do that.
So we are using the existing JUnit file for writing the Kotlin test as well, right?
Yeah, you can use whatever you want. At this stage, I don't really want to do big bang changes wherein I start introducing another, Kotlin test library. So for now, I'm sticking to JUnit 5.
Okay, that's okay.
So this looks okay, Ranjit. We are good with price. Now what?
I think now we need to integrate that in the product class, right?
That's right. So your product currently uses Java's price. I will import Kotlin's price here. That's it. One of the things, Ranjit, that I don't want to do with this commit is, the idea is to create smaller commits. One of the things that I don't want to do is make big bang changes because this is really the first step. So I will still return Java's price to the rest of the world.
Okay. So which means we are planning to keep both Java's price and the newly created Kotlin price class.
For a little while, yes.
Okay, if
I'll
I
just have
understood it,
run.
yeah. So after the
Oh, go ahead.
migration, we'll get rid of, yeah, after the migration, we'll get rid of this Java's price object or class entirely, right?
That's correct.
Okay, that's good.
So this is an intermediary step. I am still returning Java's price here. Let's see what is left. This product constructor is the only guy that we have changed. This is something product fixture that you folks are using. Price dot zero. That's great. I will change it to Kotlin's price. So Ranjit, you see this, right? Get zero. Let me remove this JVM static for a while and let's see what happens. Companion, which is your static final class, and then get zero. If you have JVM static, does not mean companion is gone. It just means there is a getter exposed directly at price level.
Yeah, but as you mentioned, internally it's still creating a static object for it, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So I'll do a build once. It works. I'll run the tests. They do run, which essentially means Ranjit, it looks as if price was integrated successfully.
Yes, we can do our first commit.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool.
So Ranjit, we have integrated price in product. I'm in a mood to make a big bang change now. Stop me if you feel that's risky. Uh, I'll take that
I
chance for now.
Yeah, I think we have the safety net of our unit tests. So in case something goes wrong, we'll have a feedback mechanism. So we can go ahead with the big bang change.
So this does not mean we are encouraging our readers or other viewers to make this change. The idea is always to make step-by-step commit, take your anxiety away, move slowly towards your goal. In the interest of time, we are making this change, and let's see if this works. I'll do a build one more time. It doesn't work. Uh, why did it? No. Here. This is fine. Price dot.
Zero.
I think I did something wrong or what? Price dot get zero. Import org meet kt catalog domain model price. Replace with this. Done. I'll do a build one more time and see what goes wrong. Fair. Price dot this becomes get zero. That's it. I'll run the tests. All of them pass, which essentially means time to make another commit. A big bang one, yes.
So after this commit, our Java's price class should be unused.
Yes, that's right. We'll go to Java's price. Let's see. It is getting used from price.kts, the method that we had created, Ranjit. I'll remove that. Price should be unused. I'll make a commit there. That's it. It is time to say goodbye to your Java's price. I'll do a build one more time. It works, and your tests. That's it, Ranjit. So we have migrated one class from Java to Kotlin. And this also tells you that, Kotlin is seamlessly integrating with Java because product from Java is using Kotlin's price.
Yeah, sir, that's quite seamless to interoperate, right?
Yep. Now what next?
Yeah, I think we can migrate this product ID class. It's a straightforward class. Yeah.
So product ID is a wrapper over string. You ensure that string is not null on line number 11. And there is some constraint.
Yes. So business. Yep. So the product ID has a business constraint that the length of the product ID should be greater than or equal to 4. If that constraint is not matched, we do not allow anyone to create the instance of this class.
Sure. So Ranjit, for this, Kotlin has got inline classes. I think Java is also introducing your value classes. So the idea behind these inline classes is create them as a wrapper over primitives, let's say int, long, float, or references like string. During compilation, they will automatically be unwrapped back to their actual objects, which were, let's say, string, int, long, whatever that is.
Okay. So, Sarthak, one of the advantages with creating this as a wrapper class was we get the compile time safety. Is that also available, or is that also possible with the inline classes in Kotlin?
Yes, Ranjit, absolutely. So let's say there is a method which takes two parameters of type string. Let's say the first parameter is a first name and the second is a last name. Now, instead of having two strings, if I had two inline classes, one is a class first name, other is a class last name, right? So when you are expected to pass first name, you will not be allowed to pass last name as, an instance. So yes, type safety would be there, but the compilation would convert them to strings, which means whenever possible, which means you're kind of having zero cost abstractions.
Okay, which means we are getting the compile time safety without losing or without burden or overhead of creating a new object for wrapper classes.
That's right.
Yeah, I think that's very cool. But one question here, with this change in Java, that will still be a string, right? Product ID, which means in all the unit tests and all the places where I'm using this product ID as a class, I need to go ahead and change it to a string.
That's right, Ranjit. Even I was thinking that. For Java, it will be a string only. So I think my take is we start with product ID. We make it a data class. We integrate it in Java as a data class. We wait till the moment everything from Java gets converted to Kotlin. When I say everything, I mean source and test both. The moment it gets converted to Kotlin, you don't need to do any migration. Just that you need to convert that data class into an inline class, and you're done. Till that stage happens, you will still be incurring an overhead of one object for product ID, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's okay. In Java, we are anyway incurring that cost, so that's not an issue. That's not an issue, Sarthak.
Okay, then I'll quickly start with product ID, nothing fancy. I'll have this as a data class to begin with. Probably this goes in our to-do list, mentioning that it needs to be converted to what? An inline class later. What do you have in product ID? A condition which says your ID has to be greater than or equal to 4 characters. Great.
Yep. So this init block, right? Is it something like a non-static block in Java?
Yes, Ranjit. So see, the idea is the primary constructor of this product ID is very limiting in syntax. So Kotlin gives you this init block wherein you can do whatever you want to, let's say some checks. And this, when this class gets compiled, all these checks will go as a part of your primary constructor.
Okay. Satak, we are missing the guard condition there.
I'll get to that in a bit, Ranjit. Give me 1 quick second.
Yeah, sure.
That's it. I'll quickly use Kotlin's string template. Done. So you were talking about guard conditions, this one, right?
Right. So that's one of the way we are preventing value to be assigned from a null value, so that we don't incur a null pointer exception.
Sure. So Ranjit, in Kotlin, everything is non-null by default, which essentially means the moment you say ID, it clearly says, hey, I'm non-null. In Kotlin world, if you try and pass a null here, you will get a compilation error. And one of the beauty behind Kotlin is it's the fact that it is quite explicit. If you really want null, say I can be nullable by appending a question mark to your T. In this example, T is a string. And you see this red tick. I don't know what this is called, but all this means is, hey, be safe, however you want to be. But you're getting a compilation error via an IntelliJ or using a Kotlin compiler. So by default, everything is non-null. No need of those, null checks, really.
Okay, which means I don't need to worry about adding the guard conditions in every class.
That's right. So Ranjit, we are done with your product ID. I think we can integrate it in product.java or wherever.
Yep.
So again, in the interest of time, if you're okay, I'll do this big bang change. Import org meet Kotlin product ID. I will change it to product ID from Kotlin. Import in this should be good. Let me do a build command F9. Great. Item.java has okay. So your product class is in the same package. Perfect. I'll change it to product ID. That should do it for item. Done, Ranjit. No compilation error. I'll run the tests. Oh, no, I cannot. Do you have a test for product ID?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, a very small test. That's fine for now.
So this test verifies, like, in case the business constraint is not met, we are not allowed to create the instance of product ID. Yep.
Fine, one test fails, Ranjit, which is catalogs unit test. Okay. So you see this IntelliJ is gray or yellow thingy. which means two instances are of different type. I will do that same thing here. Price, product ID. Done. So Ranjit, we have introduced what? Come on, integrates across. For now, I'll skip it. We'll go to warnings later. ProductID.java. Where is it used? Nowhere. I will delete it. I'll do a build one more time and tests. Control Shift R, all green. Right. It's great to delete your source code. Okay, Ranjit, we have integrated product ID and price from Kotlin. Things are working.
Yep, I think it's time to move the product into the Kotlin mode.
Sure. So I'll start with product, Ranjit. Product contains what? Product ID, barcode, price, and description. Product ID. What else? Price.
Price.
And so done, Ranjit. Okay, it's equalities based on only what? Product ID, not the entire thing. Fair.
Yeah, it's an entity, which means it has its own identity, and the equality is based on that particular identity. So for product, that identity field is a product ID.
Sure, Ranjit. So I have done equals. What else do you need? You need ID, barcode, and price. I'll copy them. These are very simple exercises, nothing fancy. This time I used IntelliJ to do the migration, a bit of it.
Yeah, with IntelliJ migration, I see this. IntelliJ has marked the return types as a nullable by default. I think it could. Right. Yeah, I think it's because in Java everything is nullable, right, by default.
That's right. Here everything is null. Your IntelliJ doesn't know that, hence it shows nullable as the return type. And that's the idea, right? We don't really want tools to do the migration. Then it's not really a migration. It's just a conversion, to be honest. You would, if tools could debate, hey, whether data class, whether inline class, sure. Till the time that doesn't happen, I think it's humans who have to do it.
Yes, I completely agree with that point, because marking a field nullable, which in fact that is not the case, right? Then we are doing the same thing in a Kotlin as well.
That's right. So I see your description is nullable, and you return lowercase in case it is not null, otherwise a blank. Fair. I need to mark my description as nullable. I need to return it as nullable. And what do I need to do? Nothing. To lowercase, I'm done. Otherwise, blank. Oh, sorry.
Okay. So this question mark colon syntax is kind of telling, right, if the left hand side is null, then return the empty string.
Yes, Ranjit. Like we saw in the last time, if you want to mark something as nullable, you explicitly say, hey, I'm nullable. It also gives you a clarity that, it also gives you a domain clarity that it's optional, right?
Yep.
In a way. So here we are saying, hey, if it is not null, do a lowercase. This is a null safe operator. And if the left-hand side is null, like you rightly said, we won't return a blank. That's it.
Okay.
So
I think
yeah, go ahead.
I think we have completely migrated the product class.
Correct. What I'll do, Ranjit, is again do a big bang replacement. Product is in what? Catalog, right? Product, replace all, replace. Done. I'll do a build, Ranjit. Fair barcode scanner, catalog.product with.
It's because they are part of the same package.
I'll make that quick change. Okay. I'll do a build one more time. It doesn't. Product unit test, great. Catalog unit test. Done.
Yep.
I will run the tests. They work. Great. Hopefully your product should now become, product.java should become unused, right?
Yep, it should be.
It is. I will delete the product, do a build one more time, and run the tests one more time. That's it. Come on, remove product.java. That's it, Ranjit. So we have migrated price, product, and product ID. What else?
Let's move to the catalog. So catalog is, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's a mapping between a product by its barcode and allows you to what? Find a product by barcode. These are, oh, that's the only behavior it has, really.
Right.
Sure. So I will start with catalog. It's a catalog. What we have, Ranjit, is what? Private val products, which is a list of product. That's it.
Yep.
In your code, you actually take a null which is not needed here. You stream, you create a map between barcode and the object itself, which is product. Where? It products.map. You have a barcode to product itself .to map, and we should be good. Or let me do one thing. That's it. IntelliJ is saying make it in one line. I'll do that. IntelliJ is saying, hey, you don't need val. I'll remove it. That's it.
So this map function is similar to lambda functions in Java.
That's right, Ranjit. So yeah, go ahead.
I was saying it looks like it's similar to a Java's lambda function, but the syntax is a little different.
That's right. So in Kotlin, you write lambda inside parenthesis, lambda body. But there is one more difference, Ranjit. If you look at the map function of Kotlin, you see this keyword inline, right?
Yep.
So in Kotlin, the writers, what they have done is all the standard library functions which take another lambda or function as a parameter, they have been marked as inline. What that means is, whenever you call an inline function, which is here, the body of that function will replace its invocation, which means technically your JVM doesn't really understand lambda functions. These functions are converted into classes which implement some interface, which essentially means if it were not inline, you're actually creating an instance of a class which implements an interface, which in Kotlin happens to be function 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, till I think 1023, function 1023 interfaces, right? With inline, you don't take that overhead of creating an additional instance because the body of the function is actually replacing its invocation, if that made sense.
Yeah, I think it does. Basically, we can use lambda functions without creating an instance of the functional interface. Is this done
That's
across
right.
all the functions like filter and
Yeah,
flat map?
yes, of course. So if you look at map, I think you also have a filter somewhere. Uh, let's see. A filter, what? I'll give you an example of a filter not. It is inline.
Yep.
Filter. This is filter. It is inline.
Yep.
Fair. So we'll come back. So you have a behavior product with which takes a barcode and returns an optional. Fair.
Yeah. So what happens in our domain is while printing the barcode on a product, sometimes it gets corrupted, right? So for those corrupted barcodes, we may not find a product in our catalog. So we are using this optional to represent basically the absence of a value. By using
Okay.
optional, it's very we are able to clearly convey that to the clients that absence of a value is a possibility. And to some extent, it also provides the null pointer exception safety. But again, that's to some extent.
That's right, Tanjeet. So I agree to the part wherein you say optional conveys it clearly to the clients that there may or may not be a value. But to some extent is, you know, uh, really the important part because you can always say in Java, we don't do it.
Right.
We follow, let's say, Joshua blocks effective Java, don't return null for optional, great. But there is no way your compiler, a tooling is stopping you from doing this. I can always do that, right?
No, there is no way. It's just a compile time warning.
That's right.
So do we have something similar in Kotlin?
So, Ranjit, there are two options that I'm thinking of. One, yes, there is nothing in Kotlin to represent optional. You can still create an option class, which could be a sealed class, which we'll see later. But one option that I'm thinking is to begin with, if you're not really using any of the features of option, like filter, map, flat map, toStream, then we start returning a nullable thingy from Kotlin. And if there is really a need, we convert that nullable product to an option by hand coding option or by taking it from libraries like Arrow, if that's okay. I'll tell you what I'm thinking. This is what I was thinking of. So to begin with, we just say, hey, product could be null. I know it'll break your Java code. But if there is a if there are features of optional that you're already using, we go and put in an optional if that is really a need.
So currently we are using optional to make it explicit, but I think that is similarly achievable by nullable types. So we
That's
can
right.
go ahead.
And
Yeah,
sure, we
yeah,
will see if there is a need. We'll introduce something to denote optional.
yeah, sure.
So that's it, Ranjit. Our catalog is done.
I think unit test will break with this change.
It will. It will. What I'll do is it is in catalog domain. I'll replace catalog semicolon with what? Kotlin's catalog. Done. I'll
Yep.
do a build. Now, all the people who are expecting optional, they go for a toss. That's okay. Barcode scanner. What happened? For now, I'll take this product out. Quickly, product is null. You seem to be throwing an exception. What else? Catalogs unit test. They are still referring to Java's catalog. Perfect. I'll just take this catalog and they break. Okay. Done. Product S. Done. Is true.
So now instead of is empty, we'll check for the null. Is null, right?
That is right. I'll do a build one more time, Ranjit. It works. And the tests. So essentially, your catalog becomes catalog in Kotlin. For now, we are saying that we will stick to a nullable product. We'll see as we move on. And this is a simple way, a shortcut to accessing. You don't have to use methods like get. It's a very simple way to get an element from hash map in Kotlin. So in producers cat, come on, in Kotlin and users across. I think catalog in Java Ranjit should become unused, right? It is. Save delete. I'll do a build one more time and the tests. Done. So Ranjit, we have migrated a lot of things from catalog domain. What next?
Yep. We are left with only barcode scanner now. That is still in the Java. Yeah.
So barcode scanner depends on catalog. Either you scan, you scan or throw an exception for a barcode. Why did you throw an exception, Ranjit?
So as I already mentioned, there is a possibility that for a given barcode, we may not get a product. So in such scenarios, we wanted that to be explicitly conveyed to the consumers of this barcode scanner. That's why we are doing that using the scan or throw naming convention for the method, and as well as throwing the exception.
So Ranjit, let me ask you this. For this method and a function, do you think a lack of result is possible?
Yeah, that is possible.
Okay, so that essentially means like we make network call, we know network could be flaky, hence no result. When you parse a string into a number, it is quite possible you might get a non-numeric string, hence lack of result. So that is a possibility here, right?
Yeah, that is correct.
So Ranjit, then if you go back to Joshua Block's effective Java, or you come down to effective Kotlin, what we say is use exception for exceptional situations. What that effectively translates to is if lack of result is possible in a function, method, whatever, you could use either a sealed class or a null to represent lack of result. I do not prefer using null to represent some exceptional situations because they could convey both absence of a value and a failure of an operation in a way. So either or other, a sealed class typically makes sense when you want to represent that an operation may or may not happen successfully.
Okay, so with sealed class, can we also convey the cause of the failure?
Yeah, that's right. See, essentially, one of the biggest advantages with sealed classes, keeping the other things aside that your hierarchy is fixed, but the advantage is you're letting the client decide, hey, this is the result. You decide what you want to do. If you want to stop the operation, sure. You want to continue, sure. You want to abort, sure. And like you asked, with sealed classes, yes, you can always convey, hey, something was a failure and something was a success.
Okay. Okay, let's try using the sealed classes and maybe then we can compare our gains.
Sure. So I see you have created barcode scanner in what? Catalog. So I'll move out of domain model and I'll start with Kotlin barcodes SCANNER. That's it. All it needs, Ranjit, is a catalog. And scan or throw pair. But I'll get to that a bit. Let's start with a simple sealed class, Ranjit. Either.
Okay. So like data class, we have this sealed class.
That's right.
Yeah.
There is a difference though. Sealed just represents that your hierarchy is fixed.
Yep.
I would be using left to represent failure and right to represent success or your value. So what I'll say is L comma R, because it'll have left is an exception. There is no R. I'll just say L comma nothing. In Kotlin, nothing means nothing. Nothing is a class which extends all the other classes. In
Is that?
right,
Yeah.
just a second.
Yeah, sure.
Right, we'll have nothing comma right. That's it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying, is that a normal convention, like representing the failure with the left, something like right biased?
I mean, that's traditionally what has happened. I don't think it needs to be followed, but one of the theories that I read long back is, your left kind of represents like some sort of a weakness. Not saying that I buy that. So that's why we say, left is representing an exception and right is representing something which is uh, not an exception, so to say.
Yeah. So in our case, it's an actual product value.
That's right. So Ranjit, I'll quickly give you some simple methods to create what left and right objects. And now left is nothing but creating an instance of left. I'll take an exception here. It has to be an exception always, which essentially means I'll constrain my L to be a subclass of exception. And here left becomes what? Exception. I will say pass a constructor parameter. That's great. I will return a right here. I need a value which is of, let's say, an R. I'll pass add constructor and we are good. Yes, we are. I want to still return an either. In left case, it is what? And it will always be an exception and a nothing. And in the right case, it will be what? Left is nothing and right is an R. And now I'll remove this. We are good. So that's pretty much it, Ranjit. Now we'll get down to we'll add behavior as and when needed. But I think oh no, this is Java. This is Kotlin. Scan or throw. I'll take a barcode. BRCOTE. What do you do?
I think
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we need a behavior to retrieve the actual value from the either.
I'll get to that. So this is your product, Ranjit. I'll let IntelliJ do something for me this time. If product is null, all I want to do is return either dot left. What was the exception?
No product found for barcode exception.
That's it. Else, I'll just say, hey, return either dot right with what product. Done. And my return type is nothing but left is what? An exception, right? Or I'll be explicit here. Left is nothing but this, and right is what? A product. And done. Okay, I'll do the formatting bit first. Type mismatch, either expected Kotlin exception fair. So Ranjit, what's happening is, even though I'm saying that return me anything which is a subtype of either L and R, it is not able to identify my left and right as subtypes, which essentially means I just want this guy to be covariant. What happened? Yeah, go ahead.
So with out, are we saying like this? The left of this can be any subclass of this exception class?
That's right. Oh,
okay.
Out is Ranjit essentially signifying covariance, right? What that effectively means is, let's say if dog is a subclass of animal, okay, and you want either of dog to be a subclass or a subtype of either of animal, which essentially means we are saying either is covariant on whatever your subtype, which was dog, right? In order to do that, in order to signify that either is covariant on L and R, okay, we need to use out. And this is very much similar to your Java's theory, PECS, producer extends, consumer super. Here, producer is out. That means I'm producing a value of type L, which is here. And consumer in, if this were a consumer, it was storing a value, I would say it takes an in.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll still keep the name as scan or throw. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we can keep this for a while. We don't want to change everywhere, right?
Yeah. So Ranjit, I'll give you two quick behaviors just to indicate whether it was a failure or not. And like you said, you also want a value. So I'm a left, yes, I'm a left. And value is what? This is nothing but a null. Right will, I am not a left. And R is nothing but your value, which essentially means private val R. Good.
Yep.
Now, Ranjit, so far we are not using exception, but if you really want, we can expose exceptions, but I'll skip that for now. You have your barcode scanner. I'll do this thing. Where is barcode scanner? It's not used in a lot of places. I'll use Kotlin's barcode scanner. You have a barcode scanner of Kotlin. That's it. Done.
So now we can check for a presence of a value at the left place. That will convey the exceptional scenario.
That's correct. Come on. That's it. Here also we get Ranjit and either. So either, come on, either dot value or null dot ID, done. And there is one more test, I think, app something. Yeah. I want to use Kotlin's barcode scanner. Scan or throw dot value or null for now. Hopefully it works. There weren't too many occurrences of barcode scanner. And I'll run the tests. They
So
pass.
Sarthak, so this naming the method, so the naming the methods like something like value or null, right? Is that, I see this is a common pattern in Kotlin.
I wouldn't just deny that or agree with it completely. Yes or null, you would see it everywhere. For example, let's say if this is Java, okay. Let me quickly have list of in Kotlin. Come on, integer dot max by, come on, max. So Ranjit, this is max by or null, which tells you, hey, either I'll return a value or I'll return a null. Okay.
Right.
So yes, we do use or null, but this convention of using a composition or is also prevalent in Java, right? For example, you had used optional somewhere. I'll go to Java, let's say.
Also has this.
Optional.empty dot or else through or else, right? So yes, Kotlin does use or null to be explicit that either I'll return a value or a null if there is no way I can return a value. I think I did run the test.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was saying that behavior is there in optional, but we don't find that in Java's collections.
That's
Java's
right.
collections, on the list, we just say get me the value on a given index.
Yeah. So Ranjit, currently the constructors have a public scope. I should have done that. I'll just change the scope of the constructor to internal. There is no way I can make them private now. So that internal in Kotlin represents group of code which is compiled as a unit. Could be an Ant project, could be a Gradle project or a Maven project, which essentially means it is accessible within your compilation unit, but not outside. Nothing should break. One more time. It does. Introduces barcode scanner in Kotlin and integrates across. That's it. I think now barcodes, so now I'll skip. Barcode scanner should become what? Unused. It does. Save, delete. Do a build and one more run. That's it. Remove barcode scanner.java.
Cool.
So
I
that's it,
think
Ranjit. We have
yeah.
migrated almost the entire catalog. I'm not sure if you want to migrate this exception also, or we can keep it for now.
No, I think let's leave it for now in Java. This the invoice domain is complex than the basket domain. We can target that first.
Invoice.
Yep.
Okay. So I see you create an invoice for a basket, something like for a basket, if this were possible, fair. And you have invoiced items, which is in an invoice, fair. Invoiced items is an array list. It extends an array list of invoiced item. An invoiced item contains product. Okay. So a pencil, I
Yep.
bought 2 quantities of a pencil and the total price was 20 rupees, 10 per pencil, fair. So Ranjit, one question, why did you extend it from an array list?
For a couple of reasons, Sarthak. So the first, invoiced items represents a list of invoiced item, right? Second, with by extending array list, we can use the array list methods such as get by index. And the third major reason was to leverage the Java's existing collection APIs, something like sort method or filter.
Sure. Ranjit, let me ask you this. Uh, do you like inheritance?
That's a tricky question. Generally, I don't prefer, but for this case, since we wanted to leverage the Java's collection, we went ahead with extending the array list.
Okay. Which essentially means, Ranjit, you're also using everything that's coming from array list, like add all, remove. I guess there is remove all also. So you also allow clients of this class to add elements into it after it has been constructed.
We don't expect anyone to add the atoms in the invoiced atom. Ideally, they should be added in the basket itself. But that behavior is there because of the extending array list.
Okay. So would it be fair to say, hey, it would have been great to have, an add here, whatever. And here we should have throw new unsupported operation exception.
Yep, that will protect us from anybody adding the atoms into the invoiced atoms collection. But there are lots of methods in the array list or the list, right? We don't want it to write the code for all of them.
Okay. So Ranjit, one of the things, the reason I asked you this question, do you like inheritances? Because uh, see, when you're inheriting from this class, array list in this example, right? You're getting everything that array list gives you, right? Everything that's public there. And now,
Right.
as a client, you might say, hey, I don't need A, I don't need B, I don't need C. That means now it is the time clients start rejecting. Until and unless there is a way wherein you have segregated your interface segregation, so that you only get what you want. Now, if you go by that theory that array list is giving you A, B, C, D, you don't want add and add all. You start saying no to add and add all. What's happening is you're creating invoiced items, which has got a very clear code smell, refused bequest, right? And it also
Yep.
breaks list of substitution. Correct?
Yeah, because we no longer can replace these invoiced atoms and assign it to any array list, right?
Correct.
Is
Which
that what
essentially it simply translates to the fact that unit test for array list wouldn't run for invoiced items, in simple words.
Yeah, that is correct.
So the other thing that I see with inheritance, Ranjit, is you need to know how base class works in order to design your own class. Until and unless you understand the behavior of the base class, you could be in a tricky spot. One of the classic examples, or the example that I read for the first time, was in Joshua Bloch's book, which is counting set. It extends hash set, you have add and add all, and you're manually counting the number of elements that you have added. So if you add 3 elements by invoking add all, you expect the outcome to be 3, and you're tracking at the elements added separately. But internally, your superclass, which is hash set, add all internally calls add, and you end up in a problem that your elements are now double, or the number of elements, which is a counter that you have kept, is now wrong. So I believe that with inheritance, you need to know the behavior of the superclass in order to design your subclass the right way.
Okay, so do you think by making all the classes as a final, Kotlin is kind of encouraging us to use the composition instead of inheritance?
There are 2 parts to it, Ranjit. Kotlin, all classes are final, okay, which essentially means it prevents you from fragile base class, which essentially means you have created an open base class and you're letting your consumers inherit it, extend it, whatever. Any change in the base class can potentially break your child classes. So first, Kotlin is trying to prevent that. And second, yes, Kotlin is saying prefer composition over inheritance. But at the same time, Ranjit, the message is quite clear. Inheritance is not the solution to all the problems. You have composition, you have delegation, assuming there is an interface which you could use for delegation, or you could use extension, which essentially means, Ranjit, inheritance would not be one solution fitting all the problems, is what I'm trying to say.
But do you think making all the classes as the final, that fragile base class problem, Kotlin has taken to an extreme case?
I could say that, but if Kotlin did not make classes final by default, right, what would you do? Which essentially means you can't say, hey, I'll choose it conditionally. I'll either have a final, you can decide what you want. No. So the idea is, hey, we are final by default. Philosophy is be explicit, which essentially means if you really want to open a class, let's say if this were Kotlin, mark it as open, which means as a writer of the class, you are taking the decision, hey, I want to make it open, which means I'm leaving it to the author to be explicit. Does that make sense? Ranjit? Does that make sense, Ranjit? I don't know where has he gone, but what I was saying is instead of inheritance, we could use delegation here.
Okay, sorry, I was got dropped for a while. So we were discussing so instead of going with the inheritance, there are multiple ways to handle. One is the composition, and what you are now referring is the delegation. Is that right?
That's right. So I was saying we could use delegation here, Ranjit. What that effectively means is create an object which implements an interface and composes from another object which implements that interface. I'll quickly show you an example if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
So meet Kitty, invoice domain model. I'll start with Ranjit invoice items. Okay. All we want is private val items. I don't know if we want val or not. We'll come back. You have a class invoice items. Invoiced items. Okay. In Kotlin, all inner classes are static by default, which essentially means I am good. That's it, by items. So Ranjit, we are done. All we are saying is, hey, this class implements this interface, composes an object which implements the same interface. And here we say delegate by this particular property, which is items, right? So invoiced items is a list, which means you get all the behaviors of list, and this guy acts as a delegate. It is just forwarding or delegating the behaviors of all the methods that you get from list to this, to the implementation of list.
Okay, but the invoiced items will still have a behavior like add and add all.
Not really, Ranjit. In Kotlin, by default, all collections are read-only, which essentially means Kotlin has done this beautifully. You have a separation of read-only and a mutable read-write collection. Until and unless you explicitly say, I need a read-write collection, it is read-only. So read-only does not mean immutable. Behind the scenes, it is backed by a read-write collection. This read-only is just an interface to a read-write collection. That's it.
Okay, so and behind in the backend they are using read and write collection to make it compatible with Java. Is that
That's
a fair assumption? Okay.
That's right. I'll quickly change this, Ranjit. All you're doing is grouping by product ID, converting them to items, mapping to invoiced items. That's fine. Items dot, I want to do a group by ID dot IT dot, come on. Oh, sorry. That items is something else. I want constructor, which is items. It's a little confusing now. I'll change it to I'll have another constructor. From your Java's item, Ranjit, items dot group by IT dot product ID dot map IT dot key, which is nothing but product ID, to items IT dot value, which is list. What else do you do? I have done this mapping, and finally you map it to invoiced items. Okay, dot map. So this is nothing but invoiced item, wherein I pass this IP. That's it. So now I'll stick to pair, Ranjit, which is a tuple in Kotlin, and I need to call primary constructor. That's it. So we are good. I can make this constructor private, I guess. Pair. What do you have in invoiced item? It just has, Ranjit, product ID, quantity, and price. Fair. Private val product ID. I'll be explicit in the type this time. Product ID. No, this is items by product ID. Product ID, that's it. What else do you have? Quantity, which I guess is an int. What else? You have the total price, which is, okay. Price, this, come on. Total price. That's it. What behaviors do you provide? You provide total items. Okay, total items is sum of quantity, fair. Total items, which is an int, which is nothing but invoiced items dot map it dot quantity. Come on, quantity and just a sum. That's it. I'll take items for, okay, here you do a filter. What is the behavior? Total items for a product ID. Product ID. All you do is filter. For now, I'm duplicating, but there are ways you can fix it. Okay, I'll take this matches. I'll let IntelliJ help me here. it.matches, your product ID, you're good. There was one more behavior, Ranjit, which was total price.
Price. Yes.
Come on, total price is equal to, how do you do that? Total price and sum, okay. All you have is invoice.map. it.totalprice.reduce accumulator.add and your price down. If they're not clear, feel free to, Ranjit, let me know. I'll add type explicitly. So invoiced items is more or less very, I think invoiced items, Ranjit, is only used here. What I'll do is I'll comment all of it. Invoiced item, I will take from what? Domain model catalog. Invoice.domain.model.invoiced items. That's it. Everything works. Okay. Bill is green. I'll run the test. That's it. Everything passes.
Yep.
I'll delete your Java's invoiced item. Now you have an invoiced item, which is still a list, Ranjit. It is just that in that list, you don't have any add all, remove all. Remember, it is backed by a Java's array list underneath, so you can still play around and do mutation. The idea is not to do it.
Yep.
So that's it, Ranjit. We have done a quick migration with our catalog domain with invoiced items, wherein we talked about different features like data class, inline class, few small things which we didn't talk about, string class, string template. We talked about null safety in Kotlin. We talked about seal classes. One of the ways you could design seal classes. There is another library, Arrow, which provides you some of these options like either option, etc. We talked about integrating Kotlin code in Java, which was quite seamless. And step-by-step way to migrate your Java to Kotlin. Yes, we did take some aggressive approach. Doesn't mean you should. We had limited time. And last, we talked about I'm sure you would have looked at it. This items is coming from Java. It's not migrated to Kotlin, but it still has these beautiful methods like group by map, which in Java are available under stream. So the moment a Java's collection came to Kotlin, it became really Kotlin's collection. All these are extension functions, which are given by Kotlin on, iterable. So this is one case wherein we are actually dealing with Java. Hence, we chose to define, we chose to define the return type explicitly in all the cases so as to avoid Java's platform type to come in or go out. So that's it. I'll stop sharing now. And Ranjit, I think it's time we bring Ela back.
Yes.
Hi guys.
Hey, Ela, welcome back after a long wait. Sorry to put you on hold. It's a long time.
Yeah, this was a very good session. I really enjoyed, especially the discussion around inheritance. was golden, I think.
Thank you, Ila. So, Ila, quick questions. Now that you folks have done complete migration from Java to Kotlin, I think I want to understand, and I think our viewers would want to. What was the trigger for this migration, Ila?
Okay. Um, so we had been exploring Kotlin for some time already. We saw that it had aspects of a model language like null safety, extensions, stream operators, Lambda. Uh, and we were curious to kind of start doing our Android development. But the only skepticism that we had was, should we move out uh, of the Google's recommended ecosystem for Android development? So once Google announced that Kotlin is now going to be the official language for Android, we like very next day we started our journey. Like how can we start migrating to Kotlin?
Great, thank you. So, one of the things, like Ranjit and I were discussing, I'll ask that same question to you. What was your starting point for this migration, Ila?
Okay. Uh, so, uh, like we wanted to start writing all the new features with Kotlin because it was interop. We did not have to stop or take out some time to migrate. We could just start writing all the new code. So for us, the starting point was first getting the developers up to speed with Kotlin, and then whenever we get a new feature which will be written completely from scratch, all of that should start happening in Kotlin. So I think just a couple of sprint later, we were able to start our work in Kotlin.
So, if I understand that right, Ila, you took one sprint. Of course, you would have done some planning, sure.
Mhm.
You started writing, making changes in Kotlin, integrating it back in Java, running your tests, accepting the feedback, and there was a time wherein Kotlin and Java code was coexisting. Is that right?
Yes, yes, for a long time, like almost one year to 1.5 years.
Sure. And Ila, how did you ensure that your team picked up Kotlin?
Right. So, like one is like it was a new language, so of course you have to get familiarized with the syntax. But it is also important that you learn the full power or the best practices that language offers. So we kind of designed a 2-week program which consisted of some materials and exercise that developer had to consume. First week is was all about just getting familiar with Kotlin, and the second week was about like understanding all these concepts that you were discussing: extensions, sealed classes, etc. How will you actually apply them in your production code basis? So we built some small exercises that developer could do, and then we had like a roster based system where every sprint one developer will not do product work and only focus on his upskilling to Kotlin.
So essentially, Ila, what I understand or what I get is it was an eventual process. You didn't really expect uh, devs to write pragmatic, idiomatic Kotlin code from day one. It was they were writing, they were also learning at the same time and
Mhm.
exchanging ideas, building opinions, and incorporating all of this in the code eventually. I mean, gradually and eventually.
Yes, absolutely. And we also had like weekly meetups where people would discuss what they learned in the last week, uh, and which so everybody could have a shared knowledge. We also did MR reviews that focus specifically on giving feedback whether you are using the best practices of Kotlin or not. So it was definitely a continuous learning process, but we knew that wherever we are not using best practices, it is a tech debt. So there was also uh, like we did not want to make it an infinitely long process. So we did pay a lot of attention that how can everybody get up to speed as fast as possible.
Sure, makes sense. Ila, these are fancy features in Kotlin and they're meant to improve developer productivity. So, one question being a dev from a dev, how would you say were the feelings of the dev after this migration was done?
Well, they were writing much less code and it was more readable. Uh, so they really liked that. Some of the null issues were actually getting caught at compile time and were not getting shipped in production. So that was also a good feeling. And like we were also early adopters. And I think after a year, almost everybody was talking about Kotlin. Uh, and people were trying to move to Kotlin. So a lot of our developers wrote blogs about it. They did podcasts. They also went to meetups to talk about it. So they really enjoyed that as well. Uh, and yeah, just being able to write much safer and much reliable code for an app that is being used by 3.5 million users. It was like they did feel a lot of uh, uh, increase in their productivity.
Great, Hila. That's great to know. Hila, this was a huge migration given, Urban Clap, the product was already being used by a lot of people. Uh, did you face any challenges that you want to bring out to our audience while doing this migration?
Um, yeah, I mean, one of the biggest challenges was actually upskilling of all the developers to use Kotlin in the most idiomatic way, because that is what unlocks the strength of the language. Just by using the syntax, it's you won't get much out of it. And like that also, like I think it took almost 3 to 4 months for all the developers uh, to get to that level. And like everybody who we were hiring knew, like no matter how much their experience was, they also had to come up and go through the same cycle. So for a long time, like for probably 6 to 8 months, there was code that we knew that we'll have to go back and refactor once we also gain more and more knowledge. So this was, I think, the biggest challenge, and I think it comes when you are moving to a new language. Uh, there were other smaller challenges very specific to Kotlin, I would say. Like sometimes we would change an interface in Kotlin and Java was supplying data to it, and Java would supply a null, but we had tested only till the interface level. An application would unexpectedly crash in production. So it took us some time to understand that we don't have to do these, like how to be careful about these things. We also were using converter to change some of the existing code. And whenever we use a Java to Kotlin converter, the Git would lose the history, and there would also be some unexpected changes that probably we had to then look at and correct. So we adopted a policy of only changing small functions or 4 or 5 lines of code using the converter and not just converting the whole file. uh, in Mockito, like it stopped understanding the final classes, so we kind of had to go and make classes open, which was like not very cool. So that was one problem we faced. Yeah, I think some other organizations also faced problems with Dagger, etc., because of capped. But like we were not using anything like that, so we did not face those problems.
Sure. So, Hila, one last question. Uh, were you skeptical before you started migration, or was there ever a feeling, hey, our app is being used by too many developers? Is it really worth taking a risk? And do you think now you're satisfied with whatever decision it was whenever you took that?
Yes, we are completely satisfied with the decision that we took. We were very happy that we did it as early as possible. Um and we did face challenges, but they were not big enough for us to make us rethink about the approach that we were taking. In fact, the kind of gains and benefits we were unlocking as more of our code base was migrating to Kotlin, it only made us more confident. There was a very complex feature of managing a conditional question answer that involved creating a whole tree-like structure and traversing it based on how user is answering. Like developers, after finishing that, said that if we had to do it in Java, it would have been impossible. and that release was like a completely bug-free release. So we started seeing all these benefits of writing, code where you are focusing more on delivering the functionality and less on how to implement it. Uh, so I think that made us only more confident as we moved along, and then the community also was showing growing interest in Kotlin, and it felt like default to everybody that uh, they should also start moving to Kotlin. So more or less, like we were actually proud of the fact that we are moving early, but we never faced challenges that were so big that we would rethink our decision.
Sure, Ela. Thank you so much for your time, Ela. That was a great conversation. Thank you for helping us understand the challenges that you faced and the overall outcomes. It is great to see and to interact with someone from a company that's gone completely from Java to Kotlin. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Arthur.
So, people, I think we are a little over time. I think I'll close the session here. I see some questions here. Some of them are already answered in the chat that you folks have been using. But feel free to reach out to us and we can. Okay, there's one question that we'll take. Please explain how the approach is towards incorporating MR feedback. Kotlin is a relatively new language. How did you adopt best practices from Java to Kotlin? This is for Ela.
Okay. So we actually created like a knowledge bank, like some of the concepts that Sarthak and Ranjit were just discussing. Right. We also created, like we looked at a lot of videos and the material that was present, and we set some rules that this is how you have to write code when you are writing in Kotlin. Uh, and then during MR feedbacks, so we used to discuss all of these rules. We were increasing this knowledge bank on a weekly basis. Uh, and then whenever anybody was doing an MR review, there was one MR review specific to only look at if you are following all these rules correctly. Uh, so this is how the process was, and yeah, like whenever everybody was enthusiastic, whenever given the feedback, they would go back and try to incorporate the best practices.
Okay. Second question, instead of generating a getter for a static I get static val. Can we tell Kotlin to generate a static field like a 0? So nothing that I am aware of. JVM static actually generates a getter for the static. So that's probably the only way. But I think I can quickly go back and check. I'm not 100% sure of it. What is internal in Kotlin? It's package private. No, Kotlin has got public, private, protected, and internal as specifiers, access specifiers. Internal means anything which is within one compilation unit can access it publicly. One compilation unit is equal to, let's say, anything that's compiled together, Gradle project, Ant project, Maven project, whatever it is. So outside that compilation unit, let's say I'm creating a library, I create something as an internal outside, that compilation unit, it's not accessible. So it's public within that unit. As an Android developer, I was keeping my Kotlin files alongside Java files, src main Java. Why does it work without a dedicated Kotlin? I was keeping my Kotlin files alongside Java files. Sure. In that case, I'm assuming it was a Gradle project, which essentially means when your Kotlin compiler is compiling, your source set would have been set to src main Java, which means your .java is being compiled by Java compiler and .kt is being compiled by Kotlin compiler. So you might want to quickly relook at what your source set, which means where is your source present, be it Java plus Kotlin or just Java, that might probably help you. In our case, we have src main Kotlin, which is what contains our source for Kotlin. A user mentioned that they tried to move to Kotlin, but that increased their SDK size by 1.3 MB, which is too much considering their SDK is only 250 KB. I'm sorry. I guess this question is relating to Android. I don't have an experience there. If Ela could comment, great. Else, I'm sorry. I'll have to pass this question.
Did you mention that? I don't think that would happen. Like, probably there was some problem in migration. It cannot go. I don't remember like our SDK size increased that much when we did this, but yeah, like even if it does go from 250 to 1.3 MB, it will depend on the net size of your app. If it is around 5 or 6 MB, then probably, yeah, I think one will have to look at the Gradle and see the optimizations to handle this. I don't remember that we actually saw such a big jump, and our app was like 5 MB below 6 MB at that time. So, yeah.
Okay, folks, I think it is a time for us to say goodbye. I hope we'll meet again, but that is it for now. I hope you would have enjoyed. If no, share feedback. We'll try and incorporate. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Goodbye. Thank you, folks.